Well, hey there. Welcome back to the People Gardener podcast. I have Serena Shoup with us this week. This is going to be another tool in your toolbox. She's going to talk to us about bookkeepers. She is a CPA that has multiple businesses, and she works and coaches and teaches bookkeepers on how to do a phenomenal job for their clients. She's going to help us understand what is a bookkeeper, what do they do, why do I need one, and any other words of wisdom. So, Serena, have at it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. So yeah, I'm an ex-corporate CPA. I built an accounting team within a large biotech company, but I also have a background in smaller business and I have a bookkeeping firm as well. I help online businesses, coaches, course creators, e-commerce with their accounting function. And yeah, we get a lot of clients. I do a lot of education with clients and bookkeepers, like you mentioned, but since we're speaking mostly to other business owners and entrepreneurs, I'll kind of focus the conversation that way. But I do get a lot of newer business owners coming to me a little confused about, like you said, what is a bookkeeper versus an accountant versus a CPA? And if you're further along in your business journey, you may have been told that you need a fractional CFO or something like that. So there's all these financial roles within that you can tap into for your business. And there's a lot of confusion. So I do a lot of education around that topic. So I'm really glad you asked. And it's one of those things that I think clients will come to us like kind of afraid to ask the question because they don't want to feel stupid. And that's another thing we can get into. There's a lot of CPAs and other professionals out there in the world that don't make it very easy to ask questions, and they can make you feel stupid. And that it's always my goal to make sure that my clients and potential clients or anyone that I speak to feels comfortable asking any type of question. And hopefully I can talk to them in a way that they understand and don't feel dumb, because we definitely, you work with lawyers or CPAs or accountants, and we get in our own little like jargon world, and then everything goes straight over people's heads. And a lot of people don't even realize it, that they're doing that. So
totally get that. I'm kind of in a unique situation. After my kids were grown, I did the books for my mom and dad's business. And then when I went into corporate, where I started in the company was in the accounting department. I did payables for years and check runs and all that kind of stuff. So I'm very comfortable in the books type of thing. So I do it for my business and I do it for Trev's business, but I only do it to the reconciliation of the bank statement. And then it goes to the accountant and is like, no. And then she comes in and talks to me about things that need to change or move here, do this, fix that, all of that kind of stuff. So I know enough to be dangerous is where it's at. But again, it's because I'm comfortable, it's fast, I can do it. It's not a burden or a distraction for me. But there's lots of things in my business that are, like my podcast editing. I now have a VA, like moving that out. And for a lot of small business owners, they're taking on this role of the books, and it is really heavy lifting. So that's why I wanted you on to help them understand there are people out there that can help you with that lifting.
At various budget levels too. So that is one thing that I get asked a lot. Like, at what point should somebody hire a bookkeeper? And it really comes down to knowing yourself. Because like you're comfortable in the books. This gives you a pulse of your business. You reconcile your bank account probably monthly, hopefully, if not more frequently. You're looking at things and categorizing things. So you have a really good pulse on your business. And that's really the purpose of bookkeeping. It's not just for you to be able to file your taxes. So depending on how close you want to understand your numbers and be involved, kind of dictates either one, if you hire somebody, or what level of involvement you have. But yeah, it really comes down to knowing yourself. And if a bookkeeper can reconcile your books and get everything done for you without you having to think about it, versus you spending 5 hours a month or whatever, a few hours a week trying to reconcile things, because it's just, I know a lot of people have some stuff around numbers and money. And so it could be a mindset thing. It could be just, I don't understand the software, but everyone said I should use QuickBooks, so I'm struggling through this. There could be so many different factors that play into what makes it heavy for you. But if it does feel heavy, I would suggest the first thing to do is to just go make a consult appointment with a bookkeeper and have them kind of look over what you've been doing, give you some pointers, and show you what your options are, because it could be a matter of, what you're doing, you're comfortable with numbers, but the software is not intuitive to you. So you maybe need training, or maybe you need to migrate to a different software, right? But knowing yourself, whether or not you should be in there spending time on it. And just because you outsource it, it doesn't mean that you can't have a pulse. In fact, if you outsource it, you should have an even better pulse, because hopefully you're working with someone that is giving you kind of a synopsis of what's happening with your numbers. That's something that we provide our clients. At every service level, you either get an email with your financial statements and some bullet points explaining a few things, or a Loom video with a dashboard overview with charts and graphs that make it more visual. Because the main purpose, like I said, is not to just be able to file your taxes at the end of the year. We want our clients to understand what's happening with their business. So if you're not keeping track of things throughout the year, you may miss some opportunities for saving money. You may miss some opportunities for pivoting until it's too late. There's so many things that could happen. Or you may, one of the big things with understanding your numbers is understanding if you can afford to do a certain thing. A lot of business owners are like, well, I'll just launch again so I can afford this mastermind, or I'll hire this person and then I'll just launch so that I can afford them. But what the better option would be to understand that you can actually afford them without having to do that, or what it would take in order to afford a mastermind or a program or hiring somebody. And that's the clarity that you get by looking at your numbers every month or more frequently.
Well,
and it's a little different than looking at the bank account.
oh, yeah. Just because there's money in the bank doesn't mean you're making money.
Correct.
Yeah, one of the things in Trev's business, he's in construction, so it's job costing, right? And understanding is like, oh yeah, I believe I charged enough. And then after the fact, doing the report and said, hey, here's the reality. You're thinking you made X on this job and you actually made Y. And then digging in and finding out, okay, so where was the discrepancy?
Yeah. And another thing that can happen with something like that too is maybe the direct costs that make to performing that job, it would have been profitable if you're just looking at what actually goes into that one job. But you also have all these other expenses called overhead to run your business, and paying yourself as the owner. That's one thing that a lot of owners don't really take into consideration when it comes to their profitability or decisions that they're making, because maybe they've never really paid themselves consistently, or they don't really understand how much they could be paying themselves, or they are just kind of stockpiling money and they're like, I'm just going to build and build and build this and keep reinvesting into the business and I'll pay myself later. But what happens when you do that is you create a habit of not paying yourself.
Yeah.
So even if you're just paying yourself $100 a month or $100 a week for the first couple years of your business, you at least have that habit of giving yourself a reward for all the effort that you're putting in. So yeah, just paying attention to, some people call them fixed costs, which is your overhead, things that pretty much don't change every month. So if you have a building, it's your rent, it's your utilities, your insurance, things like that are absolutely necessary for running your business. And then you have the variable costs are usually the ones that are tied to the product you're delivering, whether it's digital or physical. There's always going to be costs that are directly related to that, like merchant fees.
Yeah.
And in a digital world, that's one. What are some other direct costs? If you're hiring contractors to produce your podcast, that's a direct cost of the podcast. But if you didn't have the podcast, you wouldn't have that cost.
Right.
So looking at things like that is something that working with a bookkeeper, can help you gain clarity around. But that also brings me to the topic of not all bookkeepers are created equally. Just like with any other contractor or position within your company. So you kind of, just like evaluating a software, for instance, if you're trying to figure out, oh, I know I need this function in my business, I'm looking for a software to solve it. You need to have a list of items that are deal breakers that you absolutely need from that software. It's the same with a bookkeeper or any other contractor that you're trying to fill a role in your company. You need to understand what exactly you need out of that. And then you start exploring your options and interviewing bookkeepers and finding out, well, maybe that bookkeeper is not going to send you financial statements or explain them to you. So if that's something you really need, find a different bookkeeper to work with. It might cost a little more, but the clarity that you gain is a lot of times worth it.
Yeah.
And then there's other bookkeepers that will do one-off consults with you. So for you, for example, you could probably find a bookkeeper that would meet with you quarterly and check over everything so that at the end of the year, your tax preparer doesn't have to make all those corrections. You can kind of be fixing it all year round, and they can train you on how to handle things or whatever. So there's so many different options out there, and you just have to kind of understand yourself and figure out what exactly you need. And I can almost guarantee you there's someone out there that will help you.
I'm a big proponent of you and whoever you have in your life that's helping you in your business, in your life, whatever it is, you have to connect with them.
Yeah.
They have to resonate with you and you with them. My accountant, she's a CPA, she's a tax accountant, and she's been doing it with Trev's books since 2010, been with her. But she is like me. It's like, I want to know something, I pick up the phone and I call and I move and I jive, and it's like, okay, I need this. And it works for both of us. And I feel very comfortable. We've never had any issues, fingers crossed, no audits, no nothing. I mean, it's just like, okay. And she comes back and says, okay, yeah, I fixed this, and this is why, and this is what you did, and this is how you need to change things. So the relationship, I mean, hey, I'm a leadership coach. It's all about relationships, and you got to have that with this bookkeeper.
That's so important.
Do you, in your business, do you have programs that you recommend people use as far as their accounting, or specific ones that you only use for accounting?
Yeah. So in my bookkeeping firm, for all of our clients, we use Xero, Xero. And I know a lot of people are like, well, when I started my business, everyone just says to use QuickBooks because that's the software company with the biggest marketing budget, basically. So that's the name everybody knows. But because I have an accounting background, there's certain things about software that I feel very strongly about, and QuickBooks doesn't meet those needs. And one of them is like being able to delete transactions. You might think is a good thing, but it's actually not, and it can really mess things up. And QuickBooks allows you to just delete transactions as if they never happened. That shouldn't be allowed really in a proper accounting system. So that's one of the main reasons why I prefer Xero, along with just its ease of use. It's a more simple interface. It's not as complex to learn. And I've taught business owners how to use it, and I can easily train my team on how to use Xero, even if they've never used it before. It is way more intuitive, in my opinion, than QuickBooks. So that's what we use. And it's also more affordable for the clients. We actually include the software in our fees, so our clients never really have to worry about that anyway. But if you were to go out and pay for Xero on your own, it's still a lot more affordable than QuickBooks. And it operates kind of the same. It's all on the cloud, so you can access it anywhere. There's an app, so you can do things from your phone. It integrates with lots of banks, and so you get that immediate real-time bank feed into your books. And so if you want to look at things daily, you can have a daily pulse on your business in most cases, if your bank integrates and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I recommend and use. But I also I know how to use QuickBooks. And so sometimes we do bring on clients that are on QuickBooks for whatever reason, and we migrate them.
Right.
And we do it for free because for us, it makes our lives more efficient and easier. So we're able to get things back to our clients faster in a more efficient way and streamline things with reporting and all that kind of stuff. So it just makes our workflow a lot easier. I'm not saying that QuickBooks is bad. So if someone's on QuickBooks and it's working for you and you've got a handle on things, just don't delete anything, please.
Yeah.
And then you'll be fine.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a question. I'm a business owner, and I said, okay, yes, we've come to this agreement. You're going to be doing the books. What do I do with all of my physical stuff that I have, my invoices that come in, my POs that I'm doing? How do you get that information? I get the bank part of it. Okay, that download and that all makes sense. But how do I marry all of my cost
The
of
paper.
goods, all of my categories, that all this stuff that's coming out of the bank or on the credit card or whatever it is? How does that information get to?
Yeah. Since we work virtually with all of our clients, I don't go to anyone and pick up papers. None of our clients are local, although that's how we used to do it back in the day when I worked at a CPA firm. We had local clients. I would go over to their office, pick up a box of paperwork, and then bring it back to our office and reconcile everything. What we use now is something called HubDoc, and there's other options too. But basically, HubDoc, we have a HubDoc account for all of our clients. And each client's HubDoc has a unique email address. So they can forward emails that are, confirmations or receipts of things into this. It goes in there. It has an app so you can take pictures while you're traveling. So what I do, this is a really good habit to get into. If you do a lot of travel, whether you have something like HubDoc or Expensify or something different, to just, as soon as you finish signing the check at the restaurant or wherever you're at, write on it what it was for. That's a big thing, especially when it comes to meals, being very clear about why you had that meal, what client was there or what team member, and the purpose of that meeting. Write it on there, snap a photo in your phone, and then you don't have to worry about the paper later. You can just upload it. So that's how I operate. And we ask our clients to do the same thing. Same with, you can also scan things in and upload them. And there's some printers, I think it's called a Scan Snap or something. There's some printers that directly integrate with HubDoc. So as soon as you scan it uploads it to HubDoc. And then HubDoc integrates with Zero and QuickBooks. So once it goes into there, you or your bookkeeper will categorize it and make sure that it's pulling the amount and the date and the vendor name and everything correctly. And then you just click a button and it shoots it over to QuickBooks and attaches the image and everything to the specific transaction. And so it's pretty cool. You can also automatically files everything as it creates a folder for each vendor. So if you're familiar with accounts payable, that's usually how you organize things, by the vendor name. And so it does all that for you automatically. It recognizes the text on the receipts and everything. It makes it super easy to manage all of that. And then I always recommend, there's multiple points of backup, which one of them is just in HubDoc itself. The other point is when you send it over to QuickBooks or Zero, it attaches that image to the transaction in Zero or QuickBooks. But you can also have it back up your whole folder structure into your own Dropbox or Google Drive or anything like that. So you have multiple points of saving those documents, because you as the business owner are responsible for keeping proof of all of your transactions, whether you attach them in QuickBooks or not, whether you have them in a paper file or a digital file. You should still be keeping proof of pretty much everything that you do in your business. Yeah. And that's one thing that a lot of business owners don't understand either. They're like, well, I have the credit card statement. Isn't that proof enough? No, it's not.
So how long do you have to keep all this paperwork?
My recommendation is to keep things for 7 years. Depending, I'm not sure for Canada or other countries, but with the US, you have, I'm drawing a blank on the statute of limitations, basically. And as long as you're not committing fraud, The statute of limitations is 7 years.
Right.
If you've committed fraud, it's eternity. Which is funny. So just be honest. There's no statute of limitations if there's fraud involved. They can go back as far as they want if they discover fraud. But if you're honest, then you only need to keep things for 7 years.
Well, as you're talking here, people need to go and, like you say, go and have a consult and find out, because what you're talking about right here is like, wow, everything can be done in real time. And you as the business owner, you're done with it. As soon as you snap that invoice, that PO, whatever it is, you're done. It doesn't have to sit in here.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the month, you don't have to go scrounging around and looking and trying to find everything that you need to submit. And so getting in to talk to a bookkeeper and understanding the process, the potential process, would be really eye-opening, and I think would give them a better feel for, wow, you know what? I could save a lot of time, a lot of mental energy, reduce my decision fatigue big time by having a bookkeeper.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's great about that too is not all of our clients utilize that HubDoc system.
Right.
It's their choice. We provide it. It's part of Zero. It's part of our system and our software stack that we offer, but it's still the responsibility of the business owner to manage all of those documents. We provide that as a tool to make it easier if you want to, but if a client decides they don't want to submit all of their receipts to us, we categorize things as best we can by Googling vendor names and things like that. And then at the end of the month, we put whatever remains that we couldn't figure out into a Google sheet, and we send that link to the client and have them just type what it was for in the Google sheet so we can categorize it properly. We're not auditing you. We're not double checking if you're honest or anything. It's just a matter of like, let's get it into the right category. If it's something that is absolutely questionable of whether or not it's deductible, I will advise my clients, this is something that is not deductible. It is up to you if you want to still put it through. You paid for it through your business, so it's still a business expense, but it may not be something that's a tax write-off.
Right.
So I just make sure they understand, and it's ultimately still up to the client to make that call. There's some bookkeepers that take it upon themselves to say, this isn't deductible, I'm just going to book it as owner's draw. And I don't necessarily agree with that. If we've had the conversation with the client, they understand the risk, it is up to them.
Right.
It's their business.
Right. Okay. So the big question is, where do you find one? Where do you find one of these people that can make your life so much easier and give you information that you can make better decisions in your business?
Yeah. So the first place I always recommend people to go is to talk to other business owners that they trust and see who they are using and what types of things their bookkeeper is providing them, and just kind of start putting feelers out there and get some referrals, because it is something that needs to be trust. You're opening up your pocketbook, and it's not just your business that we end up getting visibility into, especially when you're a small business owner. There's things that are very intertwined with personal when you have a small business. It's all, you know what I'm saying, right? Like there needs to be that trust. You need to be able to trust that person.
At my numbers.
Yeah, we're going to see what you pay yourself, what you pay other people. If you hire people from your family, we're going to see that.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of questions, but you don't have to feel like they're intrusive. It's more about understanding the full picture so that we can give you the best advice and make sure everything is being done above board, because we're the first defense of like making sure that all your bases are covered. At least that's how I operate with my clients. I do ask a lot more questions than other bookkeepers probably do, because I want to make sure that my clients understand where the holes are when it comes to just being a compliant business owner.
That is one of my absolute top 2 things as far as having a bookkeeper. Does my taxes, submits the taxes and all the rest of it. When I get that IRS envelope asking a question, there's no panic. It's, hey, Jerry, this came, fine, send it to me. and she looks at it and does whatever. And usually it's just a paperwork, something's crossed in the mail, or who knows what. But there's no, oh, what do I do with this? And how am I going to go down this rabbit hole? I don't want to deal with these people. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
The
what,
worst thing you can do as a business owner, because I've seen this happen, the worst thing you could do when you see a letter from the IRS is to not open it.
yeah.
Most of the time it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But I've seen people just get so freaked out that they don't even open it. And then you start getting more letters and penalties and interest. And it's like, we could have solved this with a phone call to the IRS or a letter 3 years ago, but now you've racked up all this stuff and now you're on their radar.
Right, right.
So that is the worst possible thing you could ever do, is ignore those things. At least open them, contact an accountant or a CPA or a bookkeeper to figure out what you should do with it if you don't understand it. But yeah, so finding a bookkeeper, start with your close other business owner friends and find out what they're doing and if they're happy. And the other thing too is it's so easy to do a search also. So if you have a specific type of business, I do feel strongly that you should work with someone who understands your business model so that they can point out things that they're seeing in other similar businesses or things like that. So doing a Google search on whatever industry you're in, or bookkeeping for, whatever, like for us, we're bookkeeping for course creators. If you Google that, I'm pretty much like at the top of
Yeah.
that list I discovered one day on accident. Good SEO.
Yeah.
But yeah, so being able to work, if that would be your next step, if you don't have a network of other business owners that are happy with their bookkeeper, is to do your own kind of Google search. If you want to work with someone local, you can include that in your search. And the other thing you can do is you can reach out to me, because I have a network of bookkeepers that I've coached and that I mentor. And so I have a list. I would like to make it public at some point. That's one of my goals, is to have like an actual directory. But right now it's kind of a private list. And what happens is if you just email me and let me know like your industry, how big your business is, what software that you have, if you already have a preference, if you're already on QuickBooks and you don't want to switch or something like that, give me all that information. And I will handpick a couple people that either work with your industry or your software and let you contact them basically and set up a meeting.
What email is it that they would send it to?
Yeah, we can link it in the show notes, but you can also reach out to me on Instagram and I'll connect you. But my Instagram is, of course, bookkeeping. And the email that you would probably, the best email to reach out to would be support@ambitiousbookkeeper.com. That way it would get to the right place there. But yeah, that's also another option. I have hundreds of bookkeepers that I've worked with over the years and mentored, and there's some really good quality accountants in there. A lot of people that I mentor have kind of similar background to me, where they worked in corporate, they maybe left on maternity leave and didn't want to go back to corporate. So they started a bookkeeping business, and we're kind of almost, I don't want to say overqualified for it, but I think the level of service that you get from someone who's got a lot of corporate experience is going to be a little different.
Yeah, well, you have a broader perspective on the whole accounting than somebody that started as a bookkeeper and has continued to be a bookkeeper,
Right.
hasn't gone further.
But there's lots of really good, also very good bookkeepers out there that they've just been doing that for so long and they're super good at their job too. So I also work with those types of bookkeepers, and I have a great network of bookkeepers if you're in need of that. One thing that we didn't really discuss is the difference between a bookkeeper, an accountant, and a tax preparer and all those. So kind of want to run through that real quick, if that's okay. So a bookkeeper is going to handle your day-to-day stuff. So like helping you manage your receipts, if that's something that you need, reconciling your bank account. And just a little side note, reconciling your bank account sounds really scary, but all you're doing is making sure that what came through your bank actually matches what's on your books or your bookkeeping. So comparing your actual bank statement to the records that you're keeping internally. So whether that's QuickBooks or a spreadsheet or whatever it is, that way you make sure nothing's duplicated and nothing's missed. So that's mainly what most bookkeepers focus on. Your accountant kind of gathers all the information and puts it into meaningful reports. So sometimes that's financial statements, sometimes that's a tax return. There's some accountants like myself. I'm technically a CPA, but I don't do taxes. I focus more on making the information meaningful for my clients. And then we hand everything in a pretty little package over to their tax preparer at the end of the year. And then you have multiple types of tax preparers. In the US, you have something called an enrolled agent and a CPA. Both of those are able to file taxes. You can actually, lots of people can file taxes without any credentials as well. So I would recommend making sure you're vetting your tax preparer, making sure they're at least an enrolled agent or a CPA, because there's requirements with, governing bodies on ethics and education when you hold a credential like that. And then you have a fractional CFO, which a lot of what we do is kind of in that realm as well. We do the bookkeeping, we do the day-to-day, we put everything in a report, and then we analyze it for you and give you advice if you need it. Right. On what to do with those numbers. Right. So that pretty much covers it, I think. But that's a big question mark for a lot of people, because it's like, well, which one do I hire? And it kind of depends on where you're at in your business and what level of support you need.
And I would say it will change as your business grows. Like everything, right? You need to morph, and you need to find. Okay, well, this is awesome. Given them lots of information to get started with. So that's it, folks. For this week. We'll talk to you again next week.